Okay, so I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to post something like this, but here I am. My wife, Lisa, has been acting weird lately. Like really weird. We've been married for 8 years, no kids, both working steady jobs, and everything seemed pretty smooth for most of our marriage. Until now. Lisa works as a marketing manager, and her job keeps her busy with meetings all over the city. To make life easier, she started using Uber all the time. We live in a big city, so it made sense. Plus, she said it saved her time instead of taking the train. At first, it didn't bother me. She'd always talk about this one driver she kept getting, Alex, not his real name, obviously. She said he was really cool and they'd have great conversations. Whatever, right? Seemed harmless. I mean, I get it. People can have casual conversations with their Uber drivers. But then it started becoming weirdly frequent. I started noticing she'd specifically request this guy, even if it took longer for him to arrive. And she started getting home later. First, it was maybe 30 minutes late, then an hour. She claimed there was traffic, or that they had stopped for coffee because Alex was stuck in traffic nearby. What? I didn't push it. I didn't want to seem like the paranoid husband, but my gut was starting to tell me something was off. She started looking at her phone more, always smiling when she got a text. It's like a sixth sense kicked in. When I'd ask her who she was texting, she'd just brush it off. Oh, it's just work stuff, she'd say, then quickly hide her phone. Here's where it gets worse. One night, she told me she'd be working late, said she had a huge client presentation in the morning. Cool, fine, I get it, but something just didn't sit right with me. So I did something I'm not proud of. I checked her location on our shared phone plan. She wasn't at work. She wasn't even close. She was parked near some random bar on the other side of town. When she came home that night, acting all innocent, I asked her how work was. She went on and on about how tough the presentation was going to be, how exhausted she was, blah blah blah. She didn't know I knew. I'm not jumping to conclusions yet. Maybe it's nothing, right? But something tells me things are about to get really messy. So after that night, I couldn't just let it go. My mind was racing. Why was Lisa at some random bar instead of at work? Who was she really with? I didn't confront her yet because I wanted to be sure before I brought it up. The last thing I needed was her flipping the narrative, calling me paranoid or jealous when I had no hard proof. But that gut feeling was eating away at me. The next week, I paid closer attention to her behavior. She was still seeing Alex for her rides. Every single day. And it wasn't like she was just going to work and back. She'd throw in random excuses. Oh, I had to stop by the mall for a client. Or, I grabbed dinner after work with some colleagues. I couldn't keep track of her lies anymore because they kept changing. Then, one night, I came home early from work, and Lisa wasn't there. No note, no heads up, nothing. I texted her, and she said she was just grabbing a quick bite with Sarah. Sarah, her coworker. Sure, fine. But I wasn't buying it. So I called Sarah. Guess what? Sarah didn't even know Lisa was out that night. My heart sank. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I couldn't keep pretending things were fine. There were too many red flags now. But I needed solid proof, something I couldn't just brush off as a coincidence. The next day, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I asked Lisa what her plans were for the evening. Of course, she said she had to work late again because of some big project. At this point, her lies were so rehearsed, it was almost comical. But instead of getting upset, I played it cool and told her I'd make dinner and wait for her to come home. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I called an Uber and followed her. I know, it sounds crazy. But I needed to know if my suspicions were right. And sure enough, when I followed her to her destination, it wasn't her office. It was a quiet little street, just out of the way enough to be suspicious. I parked around the corner and watched as she got into his car, Alex. I stayed back, just watching them through my rearview mirror. I didn't see much more that night. She got into his car, and they drove off. No big smoking gun yet. But something was definitely up. That night, when she came home, I asked her how work was. She lied straight to my face again. I could barely stand looking at her, knowing where she really was. But I still didn't confront her. Not yet. The worst part is, I'm pretty sure she's lying about more than just her whereabouts. The whole work late thing? Her texts? Who knows what else she's hiding? I feel like a complete idiot for trusting her this long. But something's about to break. I can feel it. And I'm terrified of what I'm going to find. I was on the edge. The tension in our home was unbearable. Every little interaction with Lisa felt loaded with secrets, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was living with a stranger. I needed answers, but I also didn't want to confront her until I had irrefutable proof. So, I decided to dig deeper. I started tracking her Uber rides. Using her location and timestamps, I plotted out her trips for the past couple of weeks. There was a pattern. She'd take rides to the same few locations, mostly late at night or on weekends when I assumed she was working. And the destination? A nearby hotel that I didn't even know existed. One night, I was particularly restless. I couldn't sleep, and the thought of her with Alex gnawed at me. I had my suspicions confirmed. She was definitely seeing him. I gathered my courage and decided to do something I hoped I wouldn't regret. I decided to go to that hotel. With my heart pounding, I parked nearby, anxiously checking my phone for updates on her location. A surge of adrenaline rushed through me when I saw that she had requested another Uber. I followed it to the hotel, praying I wouldn't be too late. As I entered the lobby, my stomach dropped. I kept glancing around, half expecting her to walk in at any moment. After what felt like an eternity, I finally spotted her. She was walking in with Alex, laughing and looking more radiant than I'd seen her in months. They were cozy, leaning into each other in a way that felt painfully intimate. I couldn't believe my eyes. The woman I loved was wrapped up in someone else's arms, and it was like a dagger had pierced through my heart. I couldn't take it anymore. I followed them to the elevator, my blood boiling with rage and betrayal. When they got off on their floor, I stood frozen, my mind racing. What was I going to do? Burst in and confront them? The thought of it made me sick. But as I watched them walk away, hand in hand, I knew I was out of options. I couldn't just stand there while she was giving herself to another man. Then, in a moment of fury, I burst through the door of the room they entered. I was ready to unleash all my pent-up anger, but nothing could prepare me for what I saw next. Lisa and Alex tangled together on the bed, completely oblivious to the fact that I was standing there, watching the scene unfold. They were mid-sex, and the shock of it hit me like a freight train. Lisa's voice rang out, dripping with pleasure, and Alex was whispering things to her that sent my blood boiling. All the lies, the deception, the trust I'd given her, it was all gone in an instant. "Lisa!" I shouted, my voice trembling with anger. She turned, her eyes wide in disbelief, and her face morphed from shock to hysteria in seconds. "What the hell are you doing here?" she screamed, scrambling to cover herself with the sheets. "This isn't what it looks like." My heart raced as I fought to maintain my composure. "Oh, really? Because it looks like you're having a great time with your Uber driver. Get out! Just get out!" she yelled, her tone shifting from surprise to defiance. "I'm not going anywhere. You've been lying to me for weeks," I shouted back, my voice echoing in the small room. As I stood there, witnessing my wife's betrayal firsthand, all I could think about was how this moment would change everything. The lies, the deception, the late nights, it all came crashing down like a house of cards. I felt like I was in some twisted nightmare I couldn't wake up from. "I can explain," she blurted out, her voice shrill. "It's not what you think. Alex and I." "Save it," I interrupted. "I'm done listening to your lies. You've made your choice." In that moment, I realized I couldn't go back to the way things were. I was done. I needed to file for divorce, and I needed to do it fast. But first I had to get out of that room before the anger consumed me completely. I turned and left, slamming the door behind me, and as I walked away, I felt a mix of anger and sadness. I'd never felt more alone. I staggered back to my car, each step feeling heavier than the last. My mind was a chaotic whirlwind of emotions. I felt humiliated, betrayed, and utterly heartbroken. The woman I thought I knew, the one I had built a life with, was gone. In her place stood a stranger, caught up in a web of lies with Alex, her Uber driver. Once I got into my car, I sat there, gripping the steering wheel as reality settled in. I couldn't believe I had witnessed that scene, the intimate betrayal playing out in front of me like a bad movie. I thought about all the times I'd trusted her, all the late nights she claimed were for work, and how easily she had deceived me. Tears burned in my eyes as I drove aimlessly, not even sure where I was headed. I pulled over to a nearby park, desperately needing a moment to breathe. I couldn't process everything that had just happened. The world felt surreal, like I was watching myself from a distance. As I sat there, I could feel the anger boiling inside me again. What had I done wrong? How had I missed the signs? I replayed the moments leading up to that night, searching for clues I'd overlooked. The late nights, the phone hidden away, the casual mentions of Alex, it all came rushing back. I felt like a fool, and that was almost worse than the betrayal itself. After a while, I decided I needed to talk to someone, anyone. I called my best friend, Mark, and he picked up almost instantly. "Hey man, what's up? Can we meet?" "I need to talk," I replied, my voice shaky. "Yeah, of course. Where?" "Let's just meet at that diner by your place. I'll be there in 10. When I got to the diner, Mark was already waiting. He could see the anguish in my eyes as I slid into the booth across from him. "What's going on, dude? You look like hell." I took a deep breath and laid it all out for him, the Uber rides, the lies, the confrontation. I even told him about catching them in the hotel room. His expression shifted from concern to disbelief. "Man, I'm so sorry. I can't believe she did that to you," he said, shaking his head. "You deserve better." "I thought I knew her," I muttered, running my hands through my hair. "How could she do this? How could I have been so blind?" "You weren't blind, you trusted her. There's a difference," Mark said, his voice steady. "But you can't let this define you. You need to take control of your life now." The anger was still simmering beneath the surface, but I felt a glimmer of clarity in Mark's words. "You're right. I can't keep living in her shadow, waiting for the next lie to unfold. I have to file for divorce. I can't be with someone who disrespects me like this." As we talked, I felt a sense of resolve building inside me. I was done being the victim. I had to take action, and I needed to make a plan. But it wouldn't be easy, I knew that. The next few days were a blur of emotions. I spent hours drafting my divorce papers, making sure I had everything in order. I felt like I was finally taking control of my life. But deep down, I still grappled with the reality of what I was losing. Then came the moment I dreaded, telling Lisa about the divorce. I couldn't avoid it any longer. I needed to confront her again, to look her in the eyes and tell her how her betrayal had shattered everything we had built. So, I made the call. I told her to meet me at home later that evening. As I hung up, a mixture of dread and anticipation washed over me. This was it. The moment I'd been preparing for was finally here. And I couldn't help but feel a sense of grim satisfaction that the truth was going to come crashing down on her, just like it had on me. I paced around our living room, anxiety twisting my stomach into knots as I waited for Lisa to come home. The clock ticked loudly, echoing in the otherwise silent room. I was filled with a mixture of dread and anticipation. I knew this conversation could either be a moment of clarity or descend into chaos, and I braced myself for either outcome. When Lisa finally walked through the door, her face lit up for a moment before confusion clouded her expression. "Hey! I'm home! What's going on?" she asked, her cheerfulness jarring against the heaviness in the air. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was about to unfold. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady but my heart racing. About what? She asked, her demeanor shifting as she sensed the seriousness of my tone. About you and Alex, I said, the words spilling out like a dam breaking. I know everything, Lisa. I know you've been cheating on me. Her eyes widened, and for a moment there was silence. Then she burst into laughter, a nervous, almost manic sound. What? You're joking, right? That's ridiculous. How could you even think that? Ridiculous? Is that what you call it? I shot back, the anger bubbling to the surface. I followed you. I saw you with him at that hotel. I know you've been lying to me this whole time. Her laughter faded, replaced by a look of shock that quickly morphed into panic. You followed me? Oh my God, you're insane! This isn't happening. Stop playing the victim, I snapped, my frustration boiling over. You've been living a double life while I've been at home trusting you. Lisa's facade crumbled, and her voice turned shrill. I can't believe you'd invade my privacy like that. You have no idea what I've been going through. What have you been going through? I asked, my patience wearing thin. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been having the time of your life with your lover. I wasn't happy, okay? She shouted, her hysteria evident. You were so consumed with work and everything else that you didn't even notice me. I felt invisible. So that justifies cheating on your husband? Is that really the excuse you're going with? I replied, incredulous. Just let me explain, she pleaded, tears streaming down her face. It just happened. Alex was there for me when you weren't. I thought I could have both, my marriage and a little fun on the side. I didn't mean to hurt you. Didn't mean to hurt me? I repeated, my voice rising. You've shattered our marriage and my trust. You've made a mockery of everything we built together. Lisa's expression twisted into a mixture of anger and desperation. You don't understand. I was trying to find a way to be happy. I thought if I had this secret life, maybe it would fill the void. Fill the void? I echoed, feeling the weight of her words hit me hard. You thought betraying me would fill a void? What kind of twisted logic is that? You could have talked to me, but you chose to cheat instead. She lunged forward, her eyes wide with desperation. I'm sorry. I messed up. Please, just give me another chance. I'll do anything. I'll change. I took a step back, my heart hardening. You think this is just about giving you another chance? You've shown me who you really are, and I can't unsee it. I've already made up my mind. Her voice dropped to a whisper, panic creeping into her eyes. What do you mean? I'm filing for divorce, I said, feeling a strange mix of relief and sorrow. I can't be with someone who treats me like this. You've made your choice, and now I'm making mine. Her expression shifted to one of disbelief. You can't be serious. We can fix this. We can go to therapy. Please. I shook my head, my resolve unwavering. No, Lisa. It's too late for that. You made your choice the moment you decided to betray me. You lost my trust, and I can't rebuild it. It's over. In that moment, the weight of her actions seemed to hang heavy in the air. I could see the realization dawning on her face, the truth settling in like a dark cloud. Please, she begged, her voice trembling. Don't do this. But there was no going back. I walked past her, leaving her standing there, the weight of her betrayal heavy in the air. I knew this was just the beginning of a long and painful journey, but I finally felt free. I was ready to reclaim my life, one painful step at a time. After my confrontation with Lisa, a heavy silence filled the house. It felt surreal, like I was living in a dream where the world had tilted off its axis. I had just declared my intention to end our marriage, and the weight of that decision pressed down on me like an anchor. I spent the next few days in a haze, my mind racing with thoughts of what had just happened. I'd barely slept, and the anger that once fueled me started to fade, replaced by a profound sadness. I never wanted it to end like this. I had imagined a future with Lisa, but now that future felt like a distant memory, buried beneath the wreckage of her betrayal. I went through the motions of daily life, but everything felt empty. I stopped by my favorite coffee shop one morning, but even the aroma of freshly brewed coffee couldn't lift my spirits. My friends were supportive, offering me drinks and distractions, but I found little comfort in their company. I felt like a ghost drifting through life, weighed down by the grief of losing not just my wife but the dreams we'd built together. I focused on the logistics of the divorce, trying to keep my mind busy. I met with a lawyer, which felt surreal in its own right. The legal aspects of ending a marriage were just as painful as the emotional turmoil I was experiencing. Every paper I signed felt like a piece of my heart was being torn away. That week, I returned home to gather some of my belongings. I felt a pang of nostalgia as I walked through the house we had shared. Memories flooded back, our wedding photos on the walls, the furniture we had picked together, even the little things like our favorite spot on the couch where we binge-watched shows together. Now, those memories felt tainted, shadows of a life that no longer existed. When I walked into the living room, I noticed a framed picture of us on the coffee table. I picked it up, staring at our smiling faces, completely unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. My heart ached, but I knew I couldn't dwell on the past. It was time to face the reality of my new life. That evening, I finally worked up the nerve to call Lisa. She had been calling and texting me incessantly since our confrontation, but I had avoided her like the plague. I needed distance, but I also felt the weight of unresolved issues looming over us. "Hello?" she answered, her voice trembling. "Lisa, we need to talk about the divorce," I said, trying to keep my tone steady. "I understand, but can we at least meet in person? I can explain everything. I promise I'll be honest this time," she pleaded, her voice breaking. I paused for a moment, considering her request. Part of me wanted to hear her out, to understand her side, but the other part of me knew that meeting could reopen old wounds. "I don't think that's a good idea right now," I replied carefully. "I need space to process everything. Please, just give me a chance to apologize properly. I regret everything. I'm so sorry for what I did. I didn't mean for it to go this far," she said, her voice tinged with desperation. "Lisa, this isn't just about an apology. It's about trust, and you broke that trust. I can't go back to how things were," I said firmly. "I know," she said quietly. "But can't we at least talk? I need you to understand that I messed up. I was confused, and I thought I could manage it all. I never wanted to hurt you." "Maybe, but that doesn't change what you did," I said. "I can't keep putting myself through this. I have to move on." "Okay," she replied, her voice now barely above a whisper. "I understand. Just know that I'm sorry." We hung up, and as I put my phone down, a wave of exhaustion washed over me. I had never imagined this would be my reality. I was in the process of dismantling the life I had once cherished, brick by brick. The following days felt like a blur as I focused on my job and leaned on friends for support. I even took up cycling again to clear my mind, finding solace on the open road. Each ride became a way for me to escape the suffocating weight of my heartbreak. One evening, as I pedaled through the park, I felt a flicker of hope. Yes, my life was crumbling, but perhaps this was also an opportunity for a fresh start. I realized I could reclaim my happiness, redefine who I was outside of my marriage. The thought was both exhilarating and terrifying. But as I rode home, a sense of determination began to blossom within me. I may have lost a part of my past, but I was ready to embrace the unknown future, whatever it may hold. It was time to focus on myself, to heal and grow from this painful experience. I wouldn't let this define me. I would rise from the ashes stronger than ever. The days turned into weeks, and I slowly found myself adjusting to life post-Lisa. The divorce proceedings were underway, and I was determined to keep my head held high, even when I felt like I was constantly swimming against the tide. I leaned into my work more than ever. I threw myself into projects, trying to drown out the noise of my personal life with deadlines and responsibilities. I'd often stay late at the office, convincing myself that focusing on my career was the best way to distract myself from the pain. My colleagues noticed my newfound dedication, but I didn't mind. It kept my mind occupied and the loneliness at bay. One Friday evening, after a long week, I decided to treat myself to dinner at a local restaurant. I'd been avoiding places I used to frequent with Lisa, but I realized I couldn't let her choices dictate where I could go. I chose a small Italian place with cozy lighting and a lively atmosphere, hoping the energy would lift my spirits. As I sat at the bar, sipping a glass of red wine, I felt a mix of nervousness and excitement. It had been a while since I'd gone out alone. Just then, a woman sitting a few seats down caught my eye. She was laughing with the bartender, her smile bright and infectious. I found myself smiling despite the heaviness I'd been carrying. "Are you enjoying the wine?" she asked, turning to me with a friendly grin. "Yeah, it's actually quite good. A nice pick-me-up after a long week," I replied, surprised at how easy it was to engage in conversation. "I know the feeling. Sometimes you just need to treat yourself," she said, raising her glass in a toast. "I'm Mia, by the way." "I'm Jake," I introduced myself, feeling a spark of connection. As we chatted, I realized how much I had missed genuine conversation and laughter. Mia was warm and easy to talk to, and our conversation flowed effortlessly. We shared stories about our jobs, our passions, and even our experiences with heartbreak. For the first time in a long while, I felt a sense of normalcy returning to my life. Eventually, we exchanged numbers, and as we parted ways, I felt lighter. It was a small victory, but a significant one nonetheless. I hadn't realized how much I needed that connection until it happened. Over the next few weeks, Mia and I began texting and even went out for a couple of casual dinners. I still had my moments of grief over the marriage I had lost, but I also found comfort in these new experiences. I was learning to open myself up to the possibility of happiness again, albeit cautiously. But of course, there were still challenges. Lisa had been trying to reach out, texting me frequently with apologies and pleas to talk. I had ignored her messages, hoping that if I distanced myself, I could keep moving forward. But as the divorce approached, I felt the pressure building. The finality of it all loomed over me like a dark cloud. One afternoon, I received a message from Lisa that left me shaken. "I'm moving out this weekend. Can we talk one last time? I need closure." A part of me wanted to respond, to tell her everything I felt, to unleash the pain and anger I had bottled up inside. But another part of me knew that talking to her could only lead to more heartbreak. Closure? She had already taken so much from me, did she deserve to take more? In the end, I decided to ignore the message. I had to put myself first. The conversation we needed to have had already taken place, and I was done giving her chances to hurt me again. That weekend, while Lisa was moving out, I decided to take a long bike ride to clear my head. As I pedaled through the familiar routes, I felt the wind against my face, and with every stroke of the pedals, I was reclaiming a part of myself. The weight of the past was slowly lifting, and for the first time, I could see a future that was mine, unfettered by betrayal. When I returned home, I received a call from Mia. "Hey, I was wondering if you'd like to go for a ride with me this weekend. I just got a new bike, and I think it would be fun." "Absolutely. I'd love to," I replied, feeling a genuine smile spread across my face. As we made plans, I realized that every step I took away from the past was a step toward healing. I was finally starting to embrace the unknown with open arms, and for the first time since everything fell apart, I felt hopeful about what lay ahead. It was time to turn the page and write a new chapter in my life, one filled with possibility, growth, and maybe even love again. The day of my ride with Mia dawned bright and clear, the sun casting a warm glow over everything. I felt a sense of excitement bubbling inside me, a stark contrast to the heaviness that had dominated my life for weeks. I dusted off my bike, checked the tires, and made sure everything was in working order. When I arrived at the designated meeting spot, I spotted Mia already there, adjusting her helmet. She looked radiant, her smile lighting up the entire area. "Hey! You made it!" she exclaimed, her enthusiasm infectious. "Wouldn't miss it," I replied, grinning back. "Ready to show off that new bike?" "Oh, you have no idea," she said with a mischievous glint in her eyes. Just wait until we hit the trails. We set off together, riding through winding paths that cut through the local park. The fresh air filled my lungs, and I could feel the tension from the past few weeks begin to dissolve with every turn of the pedals. Mia was an energetic rider, often veering ahead and then circling back to keep pace with me. As we rode, we chatted about everything from our favorite cycling routes to our goals for the future. Mia was easy to talk to, and I found myself laughing more than I had in a long time. There was a genuine connection between us, and it felt refreshing to engage with someone who didn't carry the weight of my past. After a couple of hours, we stopped to catch our breath and enjoy the scenery. We found a quiet spot near a lake where we could rest, and as we sat on the grass, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace wash over me. "This is amazing," I said, looking out at the shimmering water. "It really is," Mia agreed, stretching out her legs. "I love how biking makes me feel so alive. It's like you can escape everything for a while." "Exactly. I've needed this more than I realized," I confessed, my heart lighter than it had been in months. We sat in comfortable silence for a few moments, enjoying the beauty of nature and the joy of the moment. Then Mia broke the silence. "So, what's next for you, Jake? I mean, after the divorce and everything?" The question hung in the air, and I felt a pang of uncertainty. "Honestly? I'm still figuring it out. I want to focus on my career, maybe travel a bit, and just live for a while without the baggage of my past." "That sounds like a great plan," she encouraged. "You deserve to find happiness again." "Thanks, Mia. That means a lot," I said, genuinely appreciative of her support. "I'm trying to be optimistic about the future." We shared stories of our past relationships, and it was refreshing to talk about them in a light-hearted manner. Mia's openness allowed me to reflect on my own experiences without dwelling on the pain. It felt good to share and connect on that level. As the afternoon sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting a golden hue across the lake, I knew I had to seize the moment. "Can I be honest?" I said, turning to her. "Of course. What's on your mind?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. "I really enjoy spending time with you. You've helped me see that there's still joy to be found in life, even after everything I've been through," I admitted, my heart racing slightly. Mia smiled, her eyes sparkling. "I feel the same way. It's nice to connect with someone who understands the struggles of moving on." In that moment, the air felt charged between us. It was a connection I hadn't anticipated, but it was undeniably there, like an electric current humming beneath the surface. "Would you want to do this again?" I asked, my voice a little softer. "I'd love that," she replied, her smile broadening. "Let's make it a regular thing. We could even try some new trails together." As we resumed our ride back, the world around me felt brighter. I was no longer just a man recovering from heartbreak. I was someone stepping into a new phase of life, one filled with potential and the promise of new beginnings. That evening I returned home with a sense of hope I hadn't felt in ages. As I unpacked my bike gear, I noticed a message from Lisa on my phone. "Can we please talk? I need to explain some things before it's too late." But this time, I felt stronger. I took a deep breath and turned my phone off, pushing her message out of my mind. I had made a choice to embrace my future, to focus on healing and happiness, and I wasn't going to let the remnants of my past drag me down. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my balcony, watching the sunset. The vibrant colors painted across the sky reminded me that life was still beautiful, even after pain and heartbreak. I was ready to embrace whatever came next, ready to write a new story, one where I was the author, free from the chains of the past. The following week was a whirlwind of emotions. I had finally begun to settle into this new rhythm of life, enjoying my time with Mia and finding joy in my everyday activities. I even started to take on new projects at work, feeling invigorated by the fresh possibilities that lay ahead. Yet, amidst the optimism, the specter of my past still lingered, and I knew I couldn't avoid it forever. One afternoon, as I was heading home from work, I received another text from Lisa. "I need to see you. It's important. Please." A wave of frustration washed over me. Why couldn't she just let me go? But then a part of me felt a familiar tug of guilt. I had spent so much time being angry and hurt that I realized I hadn't truly allowed myself to confront the situation head-on since our last conversation. Maybe I owed it to myself to face her one last time and finally put everything to rest. With my heart racing, I agreed to meet her at a cafe we used to frequent. As I walked into the familiar space, memories flooded back, laughter, shared secrets, and the warmth of our love before everything unraveled. I spotted Lisa sitting at a corner table, her expression a mix of apprehension and resolve. "Hey," I said, sliding into the seat across from her. "Thanks for meeting me," she replied, her voice shaky. "I know things have been rough, and I'm really sorry for everything. I just need you to understand why I did what I did." I nodded, bracing myself. "Okay. Go ahead." Taking a deep breath, she began. "I never meant to hurt you, Jake. I felt so lost and neglected. When I met Alex, it was like I finally felt seen again. It spiraled out of control, and I didn't know how to stop it. Lisa, you could have talked to me. You didn't have to cheat," I interrupted, frustration creeping into my voice. "I know. I messed up. I should have communicated better, but I was scared," she said, her eyes welling with tears. "I was scared that you wouldn't understand, that you wouldn't care." "Care?" I echoed, incredulous. "I would have done anything for you. But you chose to betray my trust instead." "I know," she whispered, her face crumpling. "And I hate myself for it. I've been going to therapy, trying to figure out what went wrong with us. I realize now how selfish I was. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I hope you can at least understand." The pain of betrayal bubbled up within me, but beneath it was a flicker of compassion. "It hurt, Lisa. It hurt a lot. I never thought I'd have to worry about the person I loved most in the world cheating on me. You've changed everything." "I know," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I'm trying to make amends. I've thought a lot about us and our life together. I regret throwing it all away for a fleeting moment of happiness. I realize now that I took you for granted." Silence settled between us, heavy and thick. I searched her eyes for the sincerity I so desperately needed to see. "What do you want from me, Lisa?" "I want to apologize and take responsibility for what I did. I want you to know that you deserve so much better than how I treated you. And I want you to be happy, even if it's without me," she said, tears streaming down her cheeks. Her words struck a chord deep within me. I could see the remorse in her eyes, but that didn't erase the hurt I'd experienced. "I appreciate your apology, but I can't go back. I've made my decision. I'm filing for divorce, and I'm ready to move on." Lisa nodded, her expression shifting to one of acceptance. "I understand. I just hope you find the happiness you deserve. I'm sorry for everything." We sat in silence for a moment, both grappling with the weight of our shared past. I felt a strange sense of closure wash over me. This was it, the final chapter in our story. "I wish you well, Lisa," I said finally, my voice steady. "I truly do. But I can't carry this burden anymore. I need to let go." With that, I stood up, feeling lighter despite the emotional heaviness of our conversation. I glanced back at her one last time before stepping out of the cafe. The sun was shining, and the world felt vibrant and alive. I had faced the past, and now I was ready to embrace the future. As I walked home, I couldn't help but think about how far I had come. I had faced my demons and confronted the pain head-on. There would still be hard days ahead, but I finally felt free from the shadows of my past. When I got home, I picked up my phone and sent a text to Mia. "Hey, are you free to hang out this weekend? I'd love to see you again." Almost instantly, my phone buzzed back. "Absolutely. I've been looking forward to it. Let's make some plans." A smile crept across my face as I texted back, feeling the thrill of possibility. I was stepping into a new life, one filled with hope, laughter, and maybe even love again. The journey had been difficult, but I was finally ready to embrace it all. The days that followed my conversation with Lisa felt like a turning point. I had confronted my past, and while the memories would always linger, I was determined to move forward. With my divorce finalized, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders, granting me the freedom to explore new avenues in life. Mia and I had been spending more time together, and every moment felt like a breath of fresh air. We took weekend bike rides through the countryside, often stopping at quaint little cafes to enjoy lunch or grab ice cream. Each adventure we shared chipped away at the remnants of my heartache, allowing joy to seep back into my life. One Saturday, as we pedaled along a scenic trail lined with trees bursting with autumn colors, I realized just how much I had changed. The laughter, the lightness, it all felt so genuine. Mia had a way of making the world seem brighter, and I found myself drawn to her warmth and enthusiasm. As we stopped by a picturesque lake to catch our breath, I took a moment to appreciate the beauty around us. The water glimmered in the sunlight, and the distant sounds of nature created a serene backdrop. "This is amazing," I said, looking over at Mia, who was grinning from ear to ear. "It really is. I love this time of year. Everything just feels alive," she replied, her eyes sparkling. We sat on the grass, sharing stories and dreams. For the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of belonging, a feeling that I could let my guard down and just be myself. "Mia, I really appreciate everything you've brought into my life," I said, looking into her eyes. "You've helped me heal in ways I didn't think were possible." Her smile softened, and she shifted closer to me. "I'm glad to hear that. You deserve to be happy, Jake. You've been through so much, and it's wonderful to see you finding joy again." In that moment, I realized how much I cared for her. It wasn't just companionship, it was a genuine connection that sparked something deeper within me. "I think I'm ready for something more," I said, feeling a rush of vulnerability. "I don't want to rush things, but I want you to know how I feel." Mia's expression brightened, and she leaned in closer. "I've been feeling the same way. I didn't want to scare you off, but I think we have something special here." Our eyes locked, and in that instant, everything felt right. I reached for her hand, intertwining our fingers. It was a small gesture, but it felt monumental, a step towards something beautiful and new. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the landscape, I knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter. I was ready to embrace the future, free from the burdens of my past. The laughter and love I had once feared losing were now within reach again, and I couldn't wait to see where this journey would take us. The following weeks flew by as Mia and I explored our budding relationship. We went to concerts, took spontaneous road trips, and even tried out new hobbies together. Each experience brought us closer, and I felt myself falling for her in a way I hadn't anticipated. One evening, as we sat on my balcony watching the stars twinkle above, I turned to her. "I never thought I'd be able to feel this way again after everything I went through," I confessed. "You've shown me that there's still so much beauty in life." She smiled softly, brushing her fingers against my cheek. "I believe that life has a way of bringing us what we need when we least expect it. You deserve this happiness, Jake." In that moment, I realized that I had finally emerged from the shadows of my past. The pain and heartbreak had shaped me, but they no longer defined me. I was a man ready to embrace love, laughter, and the adventures that awaited. As the months rolled on, I continued to build a life that felt authentic and fulfilling. I took the lessons I had learned from my marriage with Lisa and channeled them into becoming a better version of myself. I was more open, more honest, and most importantly, more in tune with what I wanted and needed. The day finally came for my first solo trip, something I had always dreamed of but had never done before. I decided to go to a coastal town I had heard wonderful things about. Mia encouraged me to take this leap, reminding me that exploration was essential for personal growth. As I stood on the beach, the waves crashing gently at my feet, I took a moment to soak in the beauty of the moment. I felt a sense of liberation wash over me. I was no longer shackled by the past. I was free to create my own destiny. I glanced at my phone, eager to share the experience with Mia. I sent her a picture of the sunset over the ocean, accompanied by a message. Wish you were here. This place is amazing. Can't wait to tell you all about it. Moments later, my phone buzzed with her response. I can't wait to hear all about it. You're going to have the best time. Enjoy every second. As I watched the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky with brilliant colors, I felt a sense of gratitude for everything that had led me to this moment. Yes, there had been heartbreak and loss, but there had also been growth, new friendships, and the rekindling of hope. Life was an adventure, and I was ready to embrace it with open arms. This was just the beginning, and I couldn't wait to see where the journey would lead me next.